Hey, whole Bible readers, it's week 11. And if you're using the printout, the PDF document, you're on the second page, or on the back if you've been printing it on both sides. So we're getting there. There are only 6 pages to this thing, and the last page is not a full page. So progress. You're going to get to the end. Now, what happens this week? We're going to finish the book of Judges. I really urge you to watch the Bible Project video on this book if you haven't already. It's hugely helpful in understanding the gruesomeness, to be honest, of the book of Judges. Now, we talked about the intro to the book of Judges last week, and we need to remember as we talk about that this week, the judges are military leaders, not judicial figures. They lead Israel in parts of Israel, in localized places, in localized conflicts against pagan groups that are harassing Israel as signs of God's judgment in the larger picture. So the structure of the book is going to take us from 3 judges who are very intrepid and relatively upstanding, or at least we don't know anything negative about them. We have Ehud and then Shamgar, and his story is very brief, like two verses. And then we have Deborah, and Deborah has the interesting case of being a woman, and this is seen as bringing shame to Israel, not because women aren't supposed to lead, but because it indicts the men for their failure of courage and faith on this occasion. Again, God using what we perceive to be weakness as he demonstrates his strength. So after those 3, we have 3 who get progressively worse. We have Gideon, who doesn't seem to be terrible at the beginning, kind of a chicken, but then he turns out to be an idolater and kind of a power grabber. Then we have Jephthah, who is in the video, I love it. They describe him as kind of a mafia boss. And he makes a very stupid promise. He says he'll sacrifice to God whatever comes out of his house first. And it's his daughter. And he doesn't know the God of Israel well enough to know that that is a complete abomination. So this is how far we're falling. Well, how far do we go further? Samson is promised to his parents to be a very mighty warrior who will stop the Philistines. And he is a mighty warrior, and he does indeed stop the Philistines, but he stops them despite his worst failures. You see, Samson doesn't want to kill Philistines. He wants to date Philistines and then get even with anybody who gets in his way. But by this means, the Philistines are kind of kept at bay. And in this gruesome scene at the end, Samson has been captured, he's been blinded, and he's like a suicide bomber. He takes everybody out. He offers a kind of a prayer to God. It's the best prayer that he's ever offered, but still we realize we're sinking lower and lower. Well, then let me warn you, you come to 2 stories that are really gross. Okay, one about the rampant idolatry that is in Israel, and the second, which is about sexual abuse, which is about rape, which is about murder, which is about civil war. Okay, that's enough of that. But why are those stories in there? Well, they're framed with the statement, in those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And of course, the subtext is, look at this, we're all terrible. This is not going well. So this is going to explain to us why when we come to the book of Samuel, which will be upcoming, Israel is asking for a king. They want a military leader. It's also going to help us understand that having a king like that is also not going to be the solution. You know, the problem here is not just disordered human nature needs a strong man to lead it. No. The problem is disordered human nature, and something more powerful than human leadership needs to bring order to it. Remember what Deuteronomy 17 said about the king as you're reading this. He's not supposed to have, lots of wives, lots of gold, lots of horses, but we'll come to that later. All right, so who is Israel's true king? Yeah, that's going to be kind of the question. Who is the world's true king? Well, the book of Ruth is in here as well, kind of like dessert for this week of reading. Ruth is just 4 chapters. It's the story of a non-Israelite, a young lady from Moab who is married to an Israelite, but her husband dies, and so does her father-in-law. And so both her mother-in-law and she are widows. Her mother-in-law is an Israelite, and she pledges herself to live with her mother-in-law as her mother-in-law returns to Israel. And it's just a poignant dialogue between the two of them, probably one of the saddest things I can ever recall reading in literature. But out of this sad story of destitution and loss, God brings deliverance as a godly, noble Israelite. Boaz takes pity on Ruth and offers himself as an unmarried man as her husband and as what's known as the kinsman redeemer, a relative of her late husband who will make her his wife so that she has a home. By that means, It's Ruth is going to become the great grandmother of King David. But interestingly enough, when her child is born, she will hand the child to Naomi to say, "This is the child who will take the place of the sons you have lost, who will care for you too in your old age." It's a poignant story of God's care and a glimmer of the way that God will bring blessing to all nations through Israel, through, well, the great son of David. Yeah. Ruth is going to be mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus when we finally get to the Gospel of Matthew. All right, blessed reading, y'all. This is exciting stuff. This is wild stuff. Fasten your seatbelts and maybe close your eyes here and there.